Talktainment Radio, worldwide sound. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, 3MR Production, its ownership, management, or staff.
We got the power. The power. The power. The power.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard. The world's greatest sound, the world's greatest radio. That's how we tag it, because that's the way it really is. I'm Brother Kahari, sitting in every week with Mr. Neely Fuller. And let's bring in Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, sir, how are you?
I'm still learning.
All right, Mr. Fuller, before we get knee-deep into what we're going to get knee-deep in, let's talk about how we can get your two prolific works on race, racism, and issues related to it. Mr. Fuller.
You can get it through producejustice.com. That's produce justice, like in producing, producejustice.com. And what should come up on the screen is a brief description of a basic textbook. That's a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism. Racism being white supremacy. That's a textbook workbook addressed to individual persons for thinking, speaking, and or acting to replace the system of racism with a system of justice. And there's also another book that's an extension of the basic book, and that's a word guide showing you how to use words, how not to use them, what questions to ask when other people use these words. And it's directed toward, with the goal in mind, of replacing the system of racism, which is the dominant system on the planet, with a system of justice and correctness. And hopefully that the people of the planet will become universal man and universal woman with the very best qualities of both people. Okay. Here again, you can get the book by producejustice.com.
All right. Mr. Fuller, speaking of words, there are three words that we're going to examine. One has just been created within the last 2 or 3 years. The other's been there for a while. So let's get right to it. Those three words: 1, Obamacare; 2, government shutdown. Let's start with this word, Obamacare. What does this word mean, Mr. Fuller, based on what you gather from it at this point?
Well, I understand that it has something to do with health care, and that's what someone chose to call it. I don't know whom, I don't know where these terms originate, but someone apparently started saying it, and it caught on. But President Obama has been talking about one of the main things that he wanted to do was make everybody healthy, was straighten out the health care system so that everybody would get the very best health care that is possible for anyone on the planet to get. And he made that as a part of his campaign address. I heard him talk about it on many occasions and saying that that's one of the main things that he wanted to do. A lot of other things he may have mentioned and whatnot, but that seems to be the central thing that he wanted to do as a president, make everybody healthy. And get the very best hospital care and prenatal care, every type of care that you can name that had to do with what we call health, under the banner of health. And Obamacare is supposed to be the method that they were supposed to do that with, evidently. Now, apparently there are a lot of people who are opposed to it, resulted in another word that you just mentioned, a government shutdown.
Government shutdown.
So that raises a question in my mind, why would anybody be so dedicated to opposing health care that they are willing to shut down the government? I think that's a logical question to ask.
That's a great question to ask, but let's break down two words. Let's go a little bit deeper into the words. Government. What does the code book say about the word government?
Well, the code book looks at it from the standpoint of counter-racist logic, that is. That's dealing within the context of dealing with racism. And racism is the dominant government on the planet. So, but that's not the way that the average person would look at it. They would just say that government is the government of the people of the Northwestern Hemisphere.
So based on that,
go ahead,
I'm sorry.
They say it's the government of the people and by the people and for the people.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I would have to ask the people who are saying it, see each individual person, what do you mean by, you're going to shut down the government? What government are you shutting down? Are you shutting down, if you have a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, well, are you saying that all of the people have decided that they don't want to be governed and they don't want to govern themselves? What does it mean? I don't know, because I'm not the person making the statement. I'm not the person who said anything about shutting down the government.
Well, let me ask.
I was told that all this was going on.
Right. So what you're telling me is that if the government is not the government, if the code says the government is something else, then there has been no government shutdown. Is that what you're telling me?
Oh, from the standpoint of a counter-racist logic, which is what I write about. I write within a context, and that context is that the entire world is governed by people who believe in racism. So I'm saying that government shouldn't have never existed, not to say anything about shutting it down. A government of justice is the government that should have existed. Government of justice meaning guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. That would be what I would call the ideal government. That government has never existed. But what we do have in place now is a government of white supremacy, a government of racism, where everything is done on the basis of race. That government need to have never existed in the first place. It has interrupted all constructive progress among people, with the exception of some scientific achievements. But the quality of existence of people is terrible on account of the existence of this government of racism.
So what you're saying is that there has been no, based on what you're calling a government, there is no government shutdown. That's what you're saying.
No, but that's within the context of one person's view, which is me.
But wait a minute.
Now,
Hold on here.
Right.
Now, you say this is a worldwide system that controls and dominates everything. Now, if that's the case, then has that system shut down? That's what I'm asking you. Has that system shut down?
Not from my viewpoint. But since you're asking me the question, no. The government of racism has not been shut down. In fact, these exercises that are going on now is all within the context of racism, and it's all about racism.
Okay, so what
the
we're
arguments about Obamacare is about racism.
How?
Because it's connected with Obama, who is a victim of racism. And I'm looking at him, and he's classified as non-white. So the people who are opposed to him are opposed to him, and anything that he says that he's for that's going to help maybe some people who are classified as non-white, and the white supremacist system says, you don't help people who are classified as non-white unless we say so. And you only help them in a way that's going to help to keep the system in place, which is the system of white supremacy. So that's the logic from a white supremacist standpoint, from the best of my understanding, and which is why we're having this controversy about Obamacare and government shutdown in the first place, because it's all about world racism, not just about the local situation here in what we call the Northwestern Hemisphere, what some people call the United States. We're talking about a global system. And apparently the racists are sending a message, hey, we don't mind you doing a few things that we tell you to do. But one thing that we're not going to let you do, in our opinion, and we will argue among ourselves about it. Now, these are the voices of the white supremacists, those white people who believe in white supremacy. They argue among themselves about how their caddy, you might say, on the golf course, which would be President Obama, is going to conduct himself as a caddy.
How the help, how the butler and how the help is going to work.
How the help is going to work. And this is what the so-called Civil War was about. Not that there's any such thing as a Civil War. That's a misnomer, too. But it's all about how we're going to handle these Negroes, you know. And so it's like any organized criminal organizations. They're saying, how are we going to handle these people up in Harlem, like in the movie The Godfather? You know, they all gathered around the table, and they were arguing about what? Well, we got black people up here in Harlem, and they're going to be the people who are going to catch the brunt of our criminal operations. So we're going to saturate them with cocaine. And so we got to agree on how we're going to go about doing it. Otherwise, we'll be fighting among ourselves forever. Now, we can't keep fighting among ourselves and run a smooth-running business organization of exploiting these dark-skinned people. Now, we're going to exploit them. Everybody's going to get a piece of the action. So the only thing we are gathered around this table about is who's going to get what piece among us as a cartel.
Right.
And that's what it's all about if you fast forward in what you call real time and reality. And that's what the healthcare thing is about.
Okay, so
somebody at the table is saying, wait a minute, too many dark people are going to benefit from this. And I don't want this many dark people in on something like this. Now, how are we going to sort this thing out? And you have another group of white supremacists who say, well, we're going to have to cut the dark people a whole lot of slack and give them excellent health care. We're ready to do that now. But there are others who say, well, I'm not ready to do it. So that's where the argument is.
So there's a disagreement.
If there were no dark people involved, if there were no people classified as non-white, we wouldn't be having this conversation, and it would be no government shutdown, and there would be no argument about Obamacare, period.
Okay, now, I want to stay on this word government shutdown, because I want to be clear about what you're saying, Mr. Fuller, because according to what you're saying, there is no government shutdown. And that's part of the illusion that people are being fooled by. They are saying that it looks like it's a government shutdown, but it really isn't. I'm not sure what it is you're saying here. Are you saying there is a government shutdown or there is not a government shutdown?
No, if you look at it, it depends on the context. If you look at it in the context of what somebody else is saying, I don't know. They'd have to explain their context. I'm explaining the context. The business of white supremacy is alive and running and hasn't even slowed, not to say anything about shut down.
Okay.
We still got the system of white supremacy in place. It's a world system. That's the only government on the planet. There is no other government.
So there has been no government. So
if you see anything running at all, it's because the white supremacists are running it. Period.
So there has been no government shutdown, is what you're saying?
None.
Okay. That's what I was trying to get to. So how will we know when there is a government shutdown? What will be the evidence of it, Mr.
When
Fuller?
The white well, it depends on the context again. If you ask Neely Fuller,
well, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, right. If you're asking Neely Fuller his opinion of what is going on, it's way off track from what we are being told is going on. So what we are being told is that there has been a shutdown, but that would be within the context of who's doing the telling. See, you'd have to go around to each individual. See, that this is the confusion part, because in the system of white supremacy, you get confusion, and part of the confusion is you never know who's doing what.
Okay, but Mr. Fuller,
that's the success of the system itself.
People come to listen to you to get the other C word, clarity. So by you saying there is no government shutdown,
there is no government shutdown, right. So the government will not be off and running since there was no shutdown in the first place.
Okay.
The government is still in place, but that's from Neely Fuller talking. That's not from people who are writing newspapers and articles and books and whatnot, and going on television and saying the government has been shut down. Neely Fuller didn't say the government has been shut down.
Well,
somebody else is saying that. So the questions would have to be addressed to the people who are saying that.
But even in the context of them saying what they're saying, it's not shut down. Social Security checks are going to be paid. The mail is still going to be delivered. The military is still going to get paid. All the stuff, all the operations overseas, covert and overt, have gone on nonstop. All of the operations in Africa, covert and overt, are going on nonstop. So even within the context of what they're saying, there has been no shutdown.
And yes, now looking at it within that context, I would say logically speaking, that is correct. That is correct, because now we get into the terminology of what is government.
Correct.
What? Yeah, right. I mean, what is the definition of government? You know, is there you're saying there's no government, nobody's being governed, that the teacher is not telling students what to do in a classroom? See, when you have a government shutdown, period, there's no teacher telling a student what to do in a classroom.
Right.
Everybody just runs around and do whatever they see fit to do. Everybody, just whatever they feel like doing, they do it. That's when you have no government. They call it anarchy. That's the name for that.
Mm-hmm. And that's
what I've been told is the correct name. When there is no government, you have anarchy. There's nobody telling anybody what to do. Everybody's going for it. Each and every individual is going into the grocery stores, just picking up stuff if they want to.
Every man, woman for himself.
There you go. In other words, what do you call it? Road warrior or whatever?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, all of that. But right. None of that has happened. So
yes.
And so what
somebody's not telling the truth.
Somebody's not telling the truth. That's what I'm trying to get at. That these words that they're using are designed to do what? What would you say is the effect of this? Because it's confusing a lot of people. I know, and they're getting whipped up. But whipped up about what is the question? Am I correct, Mr. Fuller?
Correct. In the system of white supremacy, you cannot maintain a system of white supremacy without confusion.
And
this program, Talktainment, this segment of it, the compensatory concept, opened with the statement: if you do not understand white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will confuse you. And this is just part of the confusion.
Now, how is white supremacy at work here in this situation of a government shutdown and or Obamacare? How is it at work?
I'll go right back to saying what I said just a few minutes before, and that is, why is this an issue? It's an issue because of color. The whole controversy about Obama, in my opinion, Obamacare, it is called, is about health care. Health care for whom? For everybody. They call it universal health care. They have different cliche names for it and whatnot, but they mean everybody will be cared for. Mm-hmm. Well, some segments of the white supremacy government has looked at it and said, wait a minute, you're going to include all these dark-skinned people in health benefits? We don't want them to be healthy. We want certain segments of them to be healthy, but not everybody. Healthy bodies bring about healthy minds. We don't want health for them. We want health for selected numbers of people. Numbers mean a lot. When you say everybody, we have to really consider this now. I mean, and we don't want that. We have to re-examine this. And in some segments of that cartel, the white supremacists sitting around the table are saying, hey, it won't hurt us that much. We can afford that. As long as we control their minds, they can have healthy bodies. I mean, it's mind control mostly. But they're saying, well, it might cost too much. Well, the cost of business is going up. So that's really what they're squabbling about.
Okay, Mr. Fuller, stay right there. We got a lot more to come on Obamacare, government shutdown. We invite your questions at 1-877-932-9766, 1-877-932-9766. Callers who are on the line, stay right there. We'll be with you in just a second.
Would you like to increase your physical well-being without frightening or harmful side effects? Do you believe in aliens, UFOs, or things that go bump in the night? Would you like to find ways to relieve stress and tension naturally? Have you ever wondered what a psychic might tell you? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then join us at the Universal Life Expo on Saturday and Sunday, October 12th and 13th at Veterans Memorial. Admission includes access to over 110 free lectures, being able to walk a peaceful labyrinth, watching the construction of a sacred Tibetan monk's sun mandala, and visiting almost 350 booths filled with body, mind, spirit treasures, products, and practitioners. Volunteers are admitted free, and to volunteer, call 1-855-4ULE-XPO or send an email to ulevolunteers@yahoo.com. For more information, details, and coupons, visit uleexpo.com and call us at 1-855-485-3976.
Richard Holt, research chemist, University of Rio Grande in southeastern Ohio. With your skin, you can see your condition. Richard's Remedy is a multi-purpose cream that works on a variety of skin conditions. I sell it in a 1-ounce container through the internet for $12.95 at richardsremedy.com.
All major credit cards accepted. Call 937-607-4259 or go to email info@talktainmentradio.com for a free sample of Richard's Remedy. Talktainmentradio.com. Food for thought.
Did you know that we spend 1/3 of our lives sleeping? If a person lives to be 90 years old, he or she will have spent about 32 of those years sleeping. But don't think that if we just spent more time awake, we could accomplish more in life. Our bodies don't work that way. Not getting enough sleep can contribute to stress, disease, obesity, poor memory, poor judgment, and a decrease in our abilities as we age. Lack of sleep causes accidents on the road and in the workplace. We need about 8 hours of sleep each night, and young people need even more. To that end, we should not consume caffeinated drinks past early afternoon. We should start to wind down as we near bedtime and make our bedrooms conducive to good sleep, no light exposure, and a cool temperature. I guess I and many others should no longer fall asleep by the light of the television.
That's another Food for Thought. To hear additional Food for Thought, stay tuned to TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard.
T-Mobile presents The Simple Choice.
With T-Mobile, I can walk out with the new Samsung Galaxy S4 for way less than at AT&T. We have a big family. T-Mobile.
Awesome. Well, now we'll all have the coolest phones in school. It almost makes up for the social stigma of living in a shoe. You live in a shoe.
Choose to spend less upfront at activation for your new Samsung Galaxy S4 at T-Mobile.
Got the power.
Every baby can have the freedom to move their way in Pampers Cruisers. They adapt at the waist, legs, and bottom with up to 12 hours of protection for our driest, best-fitting diaper. Pampers.
We're cracking down on Medicare fraud.
The health care law gives us powerful tools to fight it,
To investigate it
prosecute it.
and stop criminals.
Our senior Medicare Patrol volunteers
are teaching seniors across the country
to stop, spot, and report fraud.
You can help.
Guard your Medicare card.
Don't give out your card number over the phone.
Call to report any suspected fraud. We're cracking down on Medicare fraud.
Let's make Medicare stronger for all of us.
The United Independent Compensatory Code System concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works. Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
You got the power.
This is the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard. Joining us, of course, is Mr. Neely Fuller every time at this hour. And speaking of this hour, you can listen to us live on Wednesday mornings, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You'll hear a replay of what you missed, or you can go always to the podcast and get a download of the all of the programs that Mr. Fuller, at least as many as we can get in there, that Mr. Fuller and I have done, and others who have hosted the show. And you can hear all of the wisdom and knowledge and information of Mr. Neely Fuller. He has two definitive works. One, I'll give you the short name, Textbook for Victims of White Supremacy. It's a compensatory guide. The other one is a word guide. And you can get those at www.producejustice.com. Producejustice.com. One word, producejustice.com, and follow the prompts, and there you are. All right, Mr. Fuller, we have a caller who's been patiently waiting, and I want to go right now to our caller. Caller, you're on air. Go ahead. Yes. Go ahead. Yes.
Correct. It starts with the words. It is mind control. They define the words for us. You know, government. I look at the word govern. That means control. And the mint that's when the state. So you have the state of control. There is no government shutdown. Like Mr. Fuller says, you know, that business is still operating. You know, they still have a sign up. But I think that you hit it right on the head, though. It is with the words. You look at the government. You look at the word judge. You know, it's a lot of words that you can look at that they basically taking power from us. They use these words as if a judge is some kind of separate being. We all have a power to govern. We all have powers to judge ourselves. I understand this, and Mr. Fuller understands this, and Brother Kahara, you understand it. But my question is, how do we get other people to understand it? You know, I listen to your show.
Now that's a tall order, but I think Mr. Fuller can give you some pieces that'll make it work. Mr. Fuller,
you say it. We're doing it right now. That's the process. Everything starts with words. It starts with thoughts first. Thinking, speaking, acting. That's all throughout the universe where there are creatures on the universe, even among animals. Thinking, speaking, then acting. So after you think about what is going on in front of you, you just say it. Now, people might be puzzled about what you're saying, but once you say it, people will think about what is being said. And they might not agree with it, but they will think about it. They will think about it simply because you said it. And so that will be considered in their register. The mind picks that up, and the mind will make a judgment as to, well, wait a minute, is what I'm hearing making sense? Because, and the more that a person hears, the more a person becomes confused if what they're hearing is contradictory. But then that's how the mind begins to work to sort out the truth from what is false.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's the process. You say it. The minute you see that it's raining, and you walk into a room where people don't know that it's raining, or you think that it's not raining, that they don't know, you just simply say, I'd like for everybody to know when they leave here, take their umbrellas and raincoats because it's raining outside. Now, you could not be telling the truth. There might be people who will say, oh, it can't be raining outside. I mean, it's beautiful outside. I just came in. It can't be raining outside that quick. But on the other hand, you have already said, it's raining outside, folks. Regardless of what it was doing when you came in, it's raining outside now. You know, and if you go take a look, you will see that it's raining outside. So just by putting it out there, see, I always say the truth doesn't have to be preached. It doesn't have to be yelled and screamed. It just has to be told. And if it is the truth, the people's minds will search it out.
It's almost like a spoken word. Mr. Fuller, hold on for a minute. We got another caller joining
Right.
us. Brother, you stay right there. The one just spoke. Let's go to the other caller. Caller, you're on air. Go ahead.
Hi, Russ Johnson here. How you doing? Mr.
How you
Fuller?
doing, Russ? Go ahead.
Fine, sir. Fine, sir. Listen, just want to ask a quick question. Mr. Fuller, I mean, obviously we've seen what was happening during the 1860s and 1870s in terms of the black codes and the whole Jim Crow movement. Have you done any work in terms of looking at what Michelle Alexander is calling New Jim Crow? Have you read the book or heard or listened to what she's saying?
No, I've heard about the book. I've heard people talking about the book. I haven't gotten around to reading the book, but I would, since people are talking about it, I would recommend that people read the book, even though I haven't read it, because anything that deals with race, racism, counter-racism, which is the biggest problem on the planet, people, if someone calls their attention to it, they should pay attention to it. Any book that anybody's written, I mean, any movie that's being showed that deals with the race issue, I mean, in a way that people can get something constructive out of it, look into it, because this is the duty of everybody on the planet. Racism is the biggest problem on the planet. In fact, you can't solve any major problem on this planet without addressing the problem of racism, which makes racism the biggest problem. Racism gets in the way of all problem solving. I don't care what kind of problem is going on anywhere on this planet. If you take the racial equation out of it and try to ignore it, you're not going to solve that problem if it has anything to do with a problem between people.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is the bedrock of every problem that has to do with people on this planet. If you address the race problem and study anything to do about what to do about it, which is where we should be. We should have been there a long time ago, what to do about it. And anything that points to what to do about it, you definitely want to study that, regardless of where it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is what everybody should be doing. This is the order of the day. Solve the race problem first, I always say, and all the other problems you can take care of on your day off.
That reminds me of, there have been a number of movies that are popping up. One is called The Help, The Butler, and then there's a new one coming out, I believe, and Rango was another one. Now there's a new one coming out called 12 Days as a Slave. I think that's what it's called. Am I correct?
12 years a slave, yes.
Is it 12 years? Yeah, 12 years as a slave. And so, Mr. Fuller, I think the caller asked a very interesting, why are we seeing this number of issues related to race begin to pop up at this point in time? Because there for a while you didn't see it. What's going on here, Mr. Fuller?
Got to keep it going.
That's been ever since the beginning of the system of white supremacy. That's been the only issue that really counts anyway, because you're not going to make sense out of any other scenario, whether it's economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, or war, until you address the race problem. You're not going to solve any major problem in any of those categories, an economic problem, an educational problem. Just look at the Northwestern Hemisphere, just as an example. They have been squabbling about schools like forever. Affirmative action and all this type of thing in the schools and whatnot, and tuition and whatnot, and what quotas you're going to have in what school, and school busing, and whether to shut down a school on account of this, that, and the other, and whatnot. This is all connected with what color somebody is. It's the only issue. There are no other issues on this planet other than the color issue. But people are going around, particularly the white supremacists steered in that direction. Oh, no, we have thousands of other issues. No, they are not telling the truth. None of them. No, that's the only issue. You solve that issue, you solve all the other issues in one swoop. Starvation, pollution of the water, Greenpeace, all the rest of it. Solve the race problem first. And all the other issues will be solved, and just they'll fall like a deck of worn-out cards.
Yeah. Brothers, do you have any other thoughts, any other questions you want to
ask? I really do.
Go ahead.
Mr. Fuller is right, and actually he's inspired me to write a book. A year ago, Mr. Fuller said that everybody should be worried about solving problems. So I took it upon myself. I basically thought that Mr. Fuller tasked us. So I started writing a book about solving problems.
Mm-hmm.
And what I did was I categorized all problems. And I came to the conclusion, Mr. Fuller, if you will, I borrowed your concept about people activities, but I've categorized all problems into 9 major categories. You have body action problems, people activity problems, object problems, people problems, personal problems, system problems, environment problems, creature problems, and time problems. Now I said system problems. Racism, ism is a system. And that's one of the problems in the world. And like Mr. Fuller says, it's the biggest problem in the world. It's a system problem.
Well, let me ask you this, brother. Why do you believe, I know what Mr. Fuller says, but why do you believe racism is the biggest problem in the world? Because as he said, you're going to hear, no, it's economic, it's World Bank, it's financial collapse, et cetera, et cetera. Why do you believe race is the biggest problem?
I believe that racism is the biggest system problem in the world because it's a dominant factor. When you look at the word racism, like I say, ism is a system, but when you put the race in front of it, it's a system in which race is a major factor. So you don't just have a community, you have a black community. You don't have a movie, you have a black movie. Or you don't have a baby, you have a white baby. It's the major factor. We can't get past this concept. All race is just a concept. It's nothing real. It's nothing tangible. Race is not scientific whatsoever. It's just a concept that basically a group of people said that we're white and everybody else is non-white.
Okay, but let me throw 3 words at you, brother. Let me see how you handle that on the race. 1, diversity. 2, inclusion. 3, tolerance. Now, that's what we get all day long. We get diversity, inclusion, and tolerance that are thrown up at us as, I don't know why, but those are the words that says that racism no longer exists. Am I correct or incorrect? Isn't that what they're throwing at us?
They're throwing words, but they're throwing words, and they make up words, and they confuse us. Diversity makes no sense. Inclusion makes no sense. If I have a room of 3 people and one person walks in, that's inclusion. If I have a group of people, one person has freckles, the other person is light skinned, the other person has red hair, one person is fat, that's diversity. I believe that, like Mr. Fuller has been teaching us, it's the words that they use that trick us, and they get us off tangent. So before, they'll get us involved in thinking about other words and trying to figure out these concepts, but they confuse us off top. So we're set back from the get-go. The minute, the clock starts from number 1. And when we start talking about diversity and we spend even more than 1 minute talking about diversity, I think it's non-constructive because it's confusing. It makes no sense. What kind of diversity? You're talking about fat diversity, skinny, young.
So what you're saying is that these words like these, because you hear them, because we all know them, we hear them all the time, right. Words like this are designed to fool us, to trick us, and throw us off. Do you agree or disagree with that, Mr. Fuller?
Yes. Everything that the white supremacists do is designed to fool and dominate. You can dominate people very efficiently once you fool them, and you use words to fool them. And then it's easy to dominate them. You can go to sleep because they'll be on automatic because they're going by the words that you have given them, and these words are swimming around in their heads, and the words are telling them what to do. Just like if you give a person instructions. Once you give them the instructions, then you can just wander off. I mean, because the only thing that they know to do is just what they've been told. And so they told you using words. And so you just follow the words. And so when they wake up in the morning and come and check on you, you're just going on automatic, doing the things that you have been assigned to do. And that's the mechanics of any system of domination. And racism is the strongest system of domination.
That's what makes it a system, is what you're saying. Is that
because it's got a system has to be components of have a lot of components, a lot of parts. So what the white supremacists did, they didn't just take one area of activity and say that we will dominate them in this area of activity, because if they just dominated you in one area of activity, and there are 9 areas of activity, then that means that they're not really dominating you, because the other areas of activity have been left to whatever you choose to do. So I categorize all people's behavior in 9 areas. That was a choice that I made.
Total
there
domination.
Might be other people.
All right.
Yes.
Brothers, can both of you stay on the line with us?
I'll stand to the end.
Okay, all right, I appreciate it. Stay right there. More to come. We're getting into the government shutdown, diversity, inclusion, tolerance, all a part of understanding white supremacy. Stay right there. More to come.
To increase your physical well-being without frightening or harmful side effects? Do you believe in aliens, UFOs, or things that go bump in the night? Would you like to find ways to relieve stress and tension naturally? Have you ever wondered what a psychic might tell you? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then join us at the Universal Life Expo on Saturday and Sunday, October 12th and 13th at Veterans Memorial. Admission includes access to over 110 free lectures, being able to walk a peaceful labyrinth, watching the construction of a sacred Tibetan monk Sun Mandala, and visiting almost 350 booths filled with body, mind, spirit treasures, products, and practitioners. Volunteers are admitted free, and to volunteer, call 1-855-4-ULE-XPO or send an email to ulevolunteers@yahoo.com. For more information, details, and coupons, visit uleexpo.com and call us at 1-855-485-3976.
Richard Holt, research chemist, University of Rio Grande in southeastern Ohio. With your skin, you can see your condition. Richard's Remedy is a multi-purpose cream that works on a variety of skin conditions. I sell it in a 1-ounce container through the internet for $12.95.
At richardsremedy.com.
All major credit cards accepted. Call 937-607-4259 or go to email info@talktainmentradio.com for a free sample of Richard's Remedy. Talktainmentradio.com. Food for thought.
Did you know that we spend 1/3 of our lives sleeping? If a person lives to be 90 years old, he or she will have spent about 32 of those years sleeping. But don't think that if we just spent more time awake, we could accomplish more in life. Our bodies don't work that way. Not getting enough sleep can contribute to stress, disease, obesity, poor memory, poor judgment, and a decrease in our abilities as we age. Lack of sleep causes accidents on the road and in the workplace. We need about 8 hours of sleep each night, and young people need even more. To that end, we should not consume caffeinated drinks past early afternoon. We should start to wind down as we near bedtime and make our bedrooms conducive to good sleep, no light exposure, and a cool temperature. I guess I and many others should no longer fall asleep by the light of the television.
That's another Food for Thought. To hear additional Food for Thought, stay tuned to TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard.
T-Mobile presents The Simple Choice.
With T-Mobile, I can walk out with the new Samsung Galaxy S4 for way less than at AT&T. We have a big family. T-Mobile.
Awesome. Well, now we'll all have the coolest phones in school. It almost makes up for the social stigma of living in a shoe. You live in a shoe.
Choose to spend less upfront at activation for your new Samsung Galaxy S4 at T-Mobile.
Every baby can have the freedom to move their way in Pampers Cruisers. They adapt at the waist, legs, and bottom with up to 12 hours of protection for our driest, best-fitting diaper. Pampers.
We're cracking down on Medicare fraud.
The healthcare law gives us powerful tools to fight it,
To investigate it
prosecute it.
and stop criminals.
Our senior Medicare Patrol volunteers
Are teaching seniors across the country.
to stop, spot, and report fraud.
You can help.
Guard your Medicare card.
Don't give out your card number over the phone.
Call to report any suspected fraud. We're cracking down on Medicare fraud.
Let's make Medicare stronger for all of us.
The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works. Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
You got the power.
This is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. I'm Brother Kahari, sitting in every week at this same time. That same time would be 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're live at 10 a.m., replay at 10 p.m., but if you don't catch that, you can always go and get it on the podcast. All you have to do is go to TalkTainmentRadio.com, click Programs, look for Compensatory Concept, and boom, there you are. Or you can go and get Mr. Fuller's two definitive works at ProduceJustice.com, www.ProduceJustice.com. Okay, Mr. Fuller, we were looking at some of these terms. Now, I know in your word guide, you do, Mr. Fuller, you deal with terms like diversity, inclusion, and tolerance. Am I correct, Mr. Fuller?
Yes, well, diversity, for sure. Sometimes I don't look at my own book, so I don't know how many words I have in there because I had a lot of words I weren't able to get in there. But when people use any of these terms, regardless of what the terms are, anytime a person is talking, they're communicating, or they're supposed to be attempting to communicate an idea or something that they want you to do or don't want you to do or et cetera. That's the whole purpose for talking. People are trying to send a message of some type. So when people use certain terms, you want the person to know what they mean. You don't want to have to guess about what the person means. You should never walk away from a conversation scratching your head. Otherwise, you have nullified the reason for the conversation. The reason for people talking to each other is to convey messages. And the messages are supposed to be helpful. Otherwise, there's no purpose in talking. People shouldn't be talking about anything that's not going to be helpful. It's not going to be constructive. And that is a part of what I call counter-racist codification, particularly among black people. We shouldn't be talking just to be talking, just because we have voices. And you say, oh, I discovered I have a voice, so I'm going to say something. Well, say what? Well, say anything, because I have a voice. No, your voice is scientific. It should be used for a scientific purpose. And that scientific purpose should always be to convey a constructive message. That's the purpose for having a voice. Use it constructively. And so it's the same way when you use a voice, you forge something together called words, or put it together, and these words are supposed to mean something that has a constructive effect. So if someone says diversity, you ask a question. What do you mean, sir? What do you mean, ma'am, when you say diversity? And don't help the person with the answer, because that engenders an argument. I've discovered that by trial and error and whatnot. If I help the person with the answer, if I start giving the person my opinion of what diversity means, that usually starts a discussion that degenerates into an argument, because the person will then say, you have already concluded what the word means, but you are asking me what it means. So that means you are being confrontational to me. So if you ask a person a question, the scientific way to get the best out of the conversation is to let the person answer the question fully. I notice that even in court systems. Sometimes lawyers will say, oh, I'm not going to help you answer the question. I asked you the question. I want your answer, not my answer. I want your answer to the question that I asked, because I want to get your view of what it is that you are saying, not what I'm saying. Now, after you finish saying what you'll say, then I can give you my view of what it means. And that way you get a constructive conversation going. But you always ask the person who's using the term. Now, when I use the term diversity, I just simply say, I don't know what it means. And I use it with caution. That's what I advise people to do. When you hear someone say diversity, you have questions. Are you saying diverting something? Diverting from what? To what? In order to do what? Diverting means you're going in a direction, but then you decide to go into another direction. Okay, in order to accomplish what? If you're going down the highway and you suddenly decide, well, I'm not going to take this highway, I'm going to take another highway. I'm going to get off of this highway onto another one. So now you're diverting. See, you're diverting from where you were going to some other destination.
Mm-hmm.
So now the question is, okay, so you decide to get off of this highway, so why are you getting off of this highway? Well, I want to go somewhere else. Well, where is that someone else? That's somewhere else. And what do you intend to do when you get to where you're going? I mean, why are you getting off of this highway and going to this one? That's the basic question. So you ask the same thing when somebody says, oh, well, it's time for us to be diversified. Well, diverting from what to what in order to do what? So you just have questions, more questions. Because the more questions you ask in the universe, the more answers you get. And the more answers you get to questions, the more focus and clarity you get. And this is what progress comes from. All progress comes from questions and answers.
Very, very, very interesting. Callers, do you have any other questions you want to ask Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Well,
For
go
the
ahead.
record, I'd like to state that my name is Al from Baltimore.
Okay.
And I just want to re-emphasize with everything that you and Mr. Fuller just been saying. You know, we just need to focus our attention on solving problems, defining words, and asking questions. And just one comment from Mr. Fuller, or who manages Mr. Fuller's website. I think it'd be very constructive if you could upload these podcasts also to the website. Also, I know it's on Compensatory Concept Talktainment, and I download it every single week. But sometimes they fall off the system, so maybe you could upload it to ProduceJustice.com also, because you got a lot of videos that people uploaded on YouTube, Mr. Fuller. And I think it'd be very constructive if it could be organized into one site, and then people would, can constantly go to the site and get, insight, because it is very helpful. I've been listening to you for about 2 years now, and you changed my whole life, my way of thinking, the way I speak, the way I act. So I think it'd be very constructive if you could organize all of your interviews and speeches and lectures and everything, and upload them to ProduceJustice.com. I think that'd be very constructive.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I appreciate you. Brother, the other brother that's online, you have a question or thought?
Yeah, again, this is Russ Johnson.
Brother Russ, yeah, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. No, I appreciate you. Really appreciate you having him on. Really.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Excellent program. Thank you. I want to thank you for that. Here's a question, Mr. Fuller. Listen, back again, just quickly. We've had Reconstruction, 1863 to 1877. Out of that came the NAACP in 1908 with W.E.B. Du Bois and all the other guys. And then 1908 with the Urban League. And then coming into the 60s, we had the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee with Stokely Carmichael. We had Roy Ennis with CORE. We had the Black United Fund, if you will, and they still existing around the country. Then you had the Black Panther Party with Elbridge Cleaver and Martin Luther King, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Where do we go from here? What would you suggest as the next movement? What can we do to solve the problems of racism and white supremacy, sir?
Well, that's why I wrote my books. I started writing back in the 1950s. And then all through the 60s and 70s, I could see that my short answer to this is each individual, because you mentioned individual names and you also mentioned quote, unquote, organizations. The books that I have written, the basic textbook, textbook for victims of white supremacy, is addressed to individual persons, because ultimately the problem will be solved by what individual people do each and every day. The way each individual thinks, the way each individual speaks, and the way each individual person talks and acts. Okay? You're somewhere every day. So the white supremacists always steered black people into the direction of looking for the maximum leader. And then they would wait for the maximum leader to either on his own or on her own to step forward and whatnot. And then they know that at some point, the maximum leader, even at their very best, would die. Nobody stays here forever. And then black people were scrambling around saying, well, now that that person is gone, when will we get another leader? Otherwise, we got to all sit down and stare into space and wait until we get one. Hopefully we can get one. Hopefully we can get one or two or three, And so everybody just gets traumatized. That's the herd psychology. The white supremacists always said that works for us. All these black people sitting around saying, well, one of these days we'll get another one like we had before 2,000 years ago or 8,000 years ago or 200 years ago. No. Counter-racist ideology, like the racists understand, because every racist counts for a racist, meaning we know what to do. We have a code. We don't follow a person. We know what to do every day when we encounter black people. A white supremacist individually doesn't consult anybody because they already know what to do. They have a code. It's a white code called white supremacy. They follow the code. They don't follow people. They follow a code, meaning when you encounter a black person, you say this, you say that, you do this, you don't do that. If you say this and this and this and this, they will do this. You have to know how to make them laugh. You have to know how to make them cry. You have to know how to threaten them in such a way that they will respond to your threat in the way that you want them to. You have to know how to make them energetic. See, that's the white code. Every individual white person who believes in white supremacy has a code. They're not following an individual. Individuals come and go. They're not following an organization. They are an organization. Each and every individual racist is an organization within him or herself. That's one concept that black people do not understand. We, by the millions, are standing around looking at each other and saying, where is the leader to tell me that I can breathe? That's black people, literally, worldwide. Where is the leader? I can't breathe unless the leader is here. Oh, woe is me. The leader is you. Lead yourself. That's the answer to that. And you follow, what does the leader follow? A code. All you got to do is follow the code yourself. Do this, don't do this. Say this, don't say that. Go here, don't go there. The car comes by, and homeboys are saying, hey, man, get in. And you look in and see shotguns and machine guns and all this and whatnot. And you say, where are you all going? They say, well, we're going for a robbery. We want you to be with us. And that's a part of the code. And you say, I'm not getting in that car. Now, can't you do that? Can each and every individual black person do that right today without asking anybody anything? Just say, I'm not getting in that car. This is a proposition that's not going to work for me. You four black guys talking about you going and pull a bank robbery. Haven't we learned anything from history? I'm not getting in that car. Bye. See y'all later. Now, that's a part of the black code.
Do you see as part of one conscious raising effort to be involved in studying and knowing?
We're probably gonna have to hold that question until next week, brother. I appreciate you. And I appreciate all of you for listening and tuning in and being part of the compensatory concept. Mr. Fuller, thank you so much.
Thank you.